The flickering neon sign of the budget hotel casts an eerie glow across the narrow Beijing street. Marcus and I sit cross-legged on the floor with our laptops and other equipment sprawled around us. I sit adjusting the mic on the primary camera, while Marcus looks through his notes, occasionally talking to himself. This could be our biggest episode yet, Lexi. We're not just talking about some haunted house this time. This is a citywide legend, he says to me with excitement in his voice. Yeah, I hope so. After what happened with the Sesame Hotel footage, I'm not holding my breath, I mutter as I continue messing with the mic. Don't remind me. I'm still paying off the shaman I had to get rid of what followed us. But still, we have to do this on the off chance that this time we'll catch something on film, right? Marcus says as he stands up to grab soda off the table. Okay, but let's plan this one down to the second. No improvising, no splitting up. We stick together, document everything, and make sure to get off the bus before midnight, I say with a firm tone. Marcus smiles and grabs the camera to start a pre-investigation vlog. You heard her, folks. Tonight, Shadowed by Fear is taking on the infamous Beijing Ghost Bus. Legend has it, a mysterious bus appears late at night, picks up passengers only to vanish. Stay tuned as we try to uncover the truth. I roll my eyes and let out a deep sigh. Let's hope we make it back to edit that footage and not get followed this time, yeah? The dim streetlight buzzes overhead as Marcus and I wait at the Yingmeng bus terminal. The air was sticky, the kind that clings to your skin in the heat of summer and makes everything feel just a little too quiet. Our equipment bags lay at our feet and my nerves are starting to catch up to me. You good, Lex? Marcus asks while looking up at the sky. No, this feels weird. I mean, it's one thing to explore abandoned places, but to actually try to get on a ghost bus, it feels weird, I say as I wrap my arms around myself. Marcus grabs my shoulders and looks deep into my eyes. That's the point though, right? If this bus truly exists, we're documenting something no one else has. Shadowed by Fear will finally have its defining moment. Before I can say anything, the faint rumble of an engine pulls my attention away. My heart skips a beat as the bus appears down the road, its headlights flickering faintly against the misty air. The bus itself looked wrong, too old to still be running, very out of place with everything else. I swallow hard as the doors hiss open. The driver, an older man with an unreadable expression, doesn't even look at us as we climb aboard. The interior smells musty and the seats worn thin. We take seats near the middle. Marcus positions the camera, though I doubt anyone would notice or care. The bus was nearly empty except for a single person in the back, shrouded in shadows. There's not many people on, Marcus whispers. Good. Easier to catch something when it happens, I whisper back. The bus lurched forward with a groan, and the dim city lights outside begin to blur as the city disappears behind us. For a while, nothing happens. The silence is deafening, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional rattle of the windows. Then, the bus comes to a stop. The doors open, and a man in an old-fashioned worker's uniform steps on. His clothes are covered in dirt, and his expression is hollow. He doesn't make eye contact. He just sits near the front. Marcus raises his camera discreetly, but before I can say anything, the air shifts. It gets denser, colder. My breath hitches as the lights flicker overhead. Then it happens. I wasn't on the bus anymore. I was standing in a field, watching the man from behind. He was digging furiously, his hands blistered and caked in mud. The world around us is gray, lifeless. What the hell? I whispered to myself. The man suddenly stops, dropping the shovel he had. He turns to me, his eyes sunken and accusing. Leave, he yells. You shouldn't be here. I blink, and just like that, I'm back on the bus. My heart was pounding in my ears as I gripped the edge of the seat. Marcus was staring at me, his face pale. You, he begins, but before he can say anything else, the bus stops again. This time, a woman gets on. She was dressed in an old chipao, her hair neatly pinned, but she had a worried look on her face, as if she was looking for something or someone. She passed us, and for a moment, I swear she looks deep into my soul. My stomach twists. Marcus, it's happening again. I say as I grab his arm. He reaches to grab me, but I didn't have time to explain. The world shifts again. I stand in a dimly lit room. The woman was kneeling on the floor, clutching a photograph. Tears are running down her face, and she whispers a name I can't hear. I take a step closer, and she freezes. Her head snaps towards me, her eyes wide with fear. "Get out," she shrieks. Her voice echoes unnaturally, and the room spins again. I stumble back, and in an instant, I am back on the bus. "What the hell is going on, Lexi?" Marcus asks. "I don't know," I whisper. My whole body is trembling. The bus rattles forward again, the lights overhead flickering intermittently. I try to steady my breathing as I grip the seat like it's a lifeline. Marcus keeps looking between me and the other passengers. "Lex, what the hell's happening?" he asks cautiously. "Your eyes glaze over and it looks like you aren't even here." "I'm not," I say, my voice trembling. "I saw them, Marcus. After they get on the bus, it's like I'm seeing into their past, their memories." Marcus leans back on his seat. "Okay, but how?" "I don't know," I snap back, then immediately soften. "I'm sorry. I don't know, okay? But something's wrong here." Marcus lets out a deep breath. "We need to get off the bus." But as the words leave his mouth, I see the driver looking at us through the rearview mirror, and a chill runs down my spine. His gaze wasn't menacing. It was knowing, like he understood exactly what was happening. Marcus pulls out his phone. "Screw this. I'm calling an Uber." He turns it on, but his face quickly contorts in frustration. "No signal. What about you?" I check my phone and shake my head. No bars. No Wi-Fi. Marcus rubs his temples, looking to the front of the bus. "So what, we just stay here and wait for whatever happens?" I didn't have an answer. The bus slows again. My pulse quickens as the door creaks open. Marcus tenses up next to me. This time, a young boy steps on. He couldn't have been older than 10, dressed in a simple school uniform. His face was pale, his eyes wide and glassy. He shuffles down the aisle, holding a frayed school bag, and sits just behind us. The lights flickered again, and I brace myself. "Lex," Marcus says as he grabs my arm. But it was too late. The world spun, and I was gone. The sunlight was harsh, bouncing off the polished floors of a school hallway. The boy stands near a row of lockers, holding his bag tightly against his chest. He looks over his shoulder, his face filled with fear. A group of older kids stand at the end of the hall, laughing and jeering. One of them calls his name, their voice dripping with hate. "Come here," the older kid says. "You think you can get away?" The boy hesitates before taking off at full speed. His footsteps echo in the empty hallways, but the laughter follows, growing louder and more distorted. I feel his panic, his desperation to escape. He rounds a corner and slips into an empty classroom, but the laughter doesn't stop. It was everywhere now, surrounding him, drowning him. "Leave him alone," I shout. The boy drops his bag and backs into a corner, tears streaming down his face. The laughter turns into a growl, and then the room darkens. I reach for him, but as I do, the darkness swallows him, and I'm yanked back to the bus. I scream as Marcus grabs my shoulders and shakes me. "You were gone again, Lex. This is too much. We need to figure out what's going on, or..." A loud bang interrupts him. We both turn towards the back where the boy sat just moments ago. He was gone. The bus jerks again, the doors hissing shut as Marcus and I look at each other with growing terror. "Marcus, they're not just memories," I whisper. "They're trapped here, and they're trying to show us why." Marcus doesn't respond. He doesn't have to, but the fear in his eyes say it all. I could feel Marcus's eyes on me as I wiped the sweat from my forehead as the bus rattles down the road. His concern turns into frustration as time wears on. "We can't just keep sitting here, damn it. If the passengers aren't going to talk, then maybe the driver will," Marcus says with determination in his eyes. "Marcus, wait! What if he's a part of this?" I say, grabbing his arm. Marcus hesitates, his jaw tightening as he turns and walks towards the driver. I stay in my seat, not wanting to face the truth just yet. The driver barely acknowledges Marcus as he approaches, his hands steady on the large steering wheel. "Excuse me, where exactly are we going?" Marcus asks, his voice firm. The driver doesn't respond. His eyes stay locked on the road ahead, his expression as unyielding as stone. "Hey, this isn't normal. We both know it. What's happening here?" Marcus tries again, this time louder. Finally, the driver looks at him through the rearview mirror, his gaze almost pitying, but he doesn't speak. Instead, he tilts his head towards the passengers. Marcus turns, his camera still rolling, and calls me over. "I think he's telling us to talk to the passengers," Marcus tells me when I get closer. I stand there, and one by one, I look at the passengers already seated. Their faces are blank, as if frozen in time. "Marcus, I don't think they're alive," I whisper in his ear. "Then we document them. If we're all stuck here, we might as well figure out what their story is," he says grimly, raising his camera. I nodded and turned towards the first passenger, a middle-aged man with deep-set wrinkles and a briefcase resting on his lap. The minute I focus on him, the lights dim and my vision tunnels again. This time, I stand in a cramped office. The man is hunched over his desk, his hands shaking as he signs something in front of him. His breathing is shallow and filled with panic. A door slams open behind him. He flinches, but doesn't turn around. "You're out of time," a cold voice rings out as a man in a sharp suit steps into the light. "Please, just a little more time. I'll pay it back," the man pleads, his voice cracking. The figure doesn't answer. Instead, he reaches out towards the man, and before anything happens, the lights dim and I'm yanked back to the bus. I gasp for air, collapsing into the nearest seat next to me. Marcus kneels in front of me. "What did you see?" he asked, his camera trained on me. He was desperate. It was like he owed someone, and he couldn't pay it back. The fear was so strong, Marcus. It wasn't just his. It was mine, too. Marcus nods grimly, then turns back towards the aisle. "We're done," he says firmly. "We're getting off this bus before it's too late." I didn't argue. The stories, the emotions, the haunting images are just too much. We head for the doors and yell to the driver to stop. This time, he does. The bus comes to a stop and the doors open with an eerie hiss. We step off into the chilly night air and the bus drives off again, disappearing into the mist as quickly as it had arrived. The city lights are nowhere in sight. There's only the faint outline of a road stretching endlessly in both directions. "Looks like we're walking," Marcus says. I nod, holding my phone tightly. Whatever we just experienced, we need to make it back alive to tell the story. The walk back to the hotel is eerily silent, except for the crunch of gravel and the occasional hoot of an owl. We barely spoke, both lost in our own worlds. My mind kept replaying the faces of the passengers, the despair in their eyes, and the overwhelming emotions that I felt with each encounter. We finally reach the hotel and Marcus unlocks the door with trembling hands. We step into the room and both collapse onto the bed. "We need to review this now," Marcus says, getting up and grabbing the camera. "If we caught even half of what just happened, then this might be our best video yet," I say as I sit down next to him. The first clips were of the bus itself, its dim lighting casting eerie shadows across the interior. The driver's stoic face comes into view as Marcus approaches him, the tension in the air almost tangible even through the recording. Then came the passengers. The camera captures them perfectly, their blank stares, their lifeless movements, and the sadness that clings to them. When the footage transitions to me approaching the middle-aged man, Marcus hits pause. "This is it," he says, his voice hushed. "This is where you disappear into a vision." We watched as I stand in front of the man, my body going rigid. The camera focuses on my face as my expression shifts. First, confusion, then fear, and finally, overwhelming sorrow. Marcus curses under his breath. It's like you're reliving his whole life," he says. "And it's not just you. Look at the man." I hadn't noticed it during the ride, but now it was clear. As I experienced the past, the man's face softens. The glassy, lifeless look in his eyes fades, replaced by something more human. It was as if the act of remembering brought a sliver of clarity to his spirit. The same thing happens with each passenger. Every time I connect with their story, their presence becomes more distinct, more grounded. Marcus captured every moment of it, the passengers boarding, the flickering lights, and my reactions. When we finished watching the footage, Marcus leans back, running a hand through his hair. "This is insane," he mutters. "We have to upload it." I hesitate, chewing my lip. But what if it's too much? People are going to see their loved ones on that bus. If we put this out there, it could mess with them. Marcus shakes his head. That's exactly why we need to. If their loved ones are trapped, maybe someone out there knows how to help them and bring them peace. We can't just sit on this. Reluctantly, I nod. Together, we edit the video into a haunting narrative, leaving in every key moment. The final cut was chilling. The passengers, their stories, the unexplainable phenomenon of the bus ride. By the time we hit upload, the clock reads 3:02 a.m. The comments start rolling in almost immediately. "That's my uncle at 412. He disappeared 5 years ago. Why is he on that bus?" "The woman in the floral dress. That's my mom. She died in a car accident 2 years ago. How is this possible?" "I recognize the driver. He went missing decades ago. I always wondered what happened to him. This is heartbreaking." More and more comments pour in, each one a ripple of sadness and confusion. People shared names, memories, and stories of loved ones who had vanished or passed under mysterious circumstances. I couldn't read them anymore. The weight of the truth, the fact that we'd just documented an unseen place where the lost lingered, was just too much. Marcus stares at the screen, his jaw tight. Do you think they're stuck there? Forever?" I don't answer. What can I say? The bus, the passengers, the overwhelming sorrow in their eyes, it all points to one grim conclusion. That night, I lay awake, haunted not just by what I've seen, but by what we exposed to the world. The video had given answers to some, but it had also raised more questions than we can ever hope to answer. And somewhere out there, the ghost bus still rolls on, carrying its passengers into the unknown.